Yep.
Well, hello. It's Friday, April 5th, 2024, and I'm here with Doug to talk about what's wrong with kids these days. But first, you got a hospital administrator who's got something wrong with him.
Yeah, boy, Sam, this is some story. It has to do with identity theft.
Yeah.
And this is a complex story involving two people, and one of them is the victim who I got to think how I want to explain the story. But there is a guy, there are two guys. One of them was I think selling hot dogs. It's not kind of clear, but somehow the two of them met.
They work together
And
at the hot dog stand, I think.
oh, they work together. Is that what it
Yeah.
was? Okay.
Yeah, so it
Okay.
starts by just targeting one of your buddies at work.
Yeah, okay. Okay. I missed that part of the story.
Yeah.
So the two of them work together. One of them stole the other guy's identity. And the identity of the person that got stolen kind of fell onto hard times. In the meantime, the guy who stole the identity um, becomes a hospital administrator, and he assumes the identity of the other guy who then moves to California, or eventually moves to California. So for 30 years, this guy has been taking out loans. I believe his I-9 form for IRS was under the other guy, the California guy. Anyway, he has bank accounts. He's been assuming this guy's identity for nearly 30 years. In the meantime, the guy who fell on hard times, whose identity got stolen, realizes that his identity is stolen, goes to a bank and tells them, hey, my identity is stolen. The guy who's pretending to be me is not really is not really me. I'm me. And so they said, okay, well, if you're really you, what's the secret code for your account? And he goes, well, I don't know because it's not my account. This guy stole my identity and opened up the accounts. Eventually, the police were called. He gets arrested and he goes into court and he insists that his identity is has been stolen by this other guy. And the other guy is now living, it's either in Kansas or, do you know where?
Forget where.
Yeah, not Michigan. Anyway, he's calling the police saying, this guy is pretending to be me. So the police believe the guy who stole the identity.
Well, the real guy is homeless. So you have some
Yeah,
crazy homeless person.
yeah,
The other guy has been like a hospital administrator for 30 years.
yeah, yeah. So it makes perfect sense, right?
Yeah.
So he gets arrested. He goes before the judge. The judge says, oh, you're crazy, puts him into a mental hospital for over 6 months.
Yeah.
He then spends, I think, another 6 months or longer, maybe it's another year in jail for trying to impersonate the guy. Finally, somebody listens to him. It's unclear to me, but eventually I think a private detective got DNA because the guy who stole the identity claimed that he had relatives that were in Kentucky, which is true. They did a DNA analysis and then realized the guy who stole the identity, his DNA didn't match. The other guy's, the homeless guy's DNA did match. And so now this is becoming unraveled. And the hospital administrator who stole the identity looks like he's facing anywhere from 2 to 32 years of prison time.
I think there've been TV shows based on this premise. Like,
Oh, I'm sure there have. Yeah.
and and
Yeah.
and the one thing I kind of wonder is what did the hospital administrator guy get out of this? I mean, he had to take out if you're going to keep the same stolen identity for 30 years, you're going to have to pay for all those loans and stuff. So the only thing I think you're escaping is some horrible thing in your own past.
Yeah, it's unclear.
Yeah.
I, yeah, but
But
you
but
know,
you feel
for
sorry for the poor homeless guy saying, "Wait, that's not me," and they say, "Oh, you're crazy. We're going to lock you up and punish you."
yeah.
Wait, it's not me.
I mean, we laugh at this, but sadly, you know, what do you do in a situation like that, right?
Yeah, it reminds me of that Jim Carrey movie where everybody around him is an actor, all pretending to be his friend and his boss and his wife and everything, and it's all it's all a plot, this kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, you know, there have been kids who've been switched at birth,
Yeah,
and I know that there was one kind of famous story that the the parents even knew their kids got switched at birth.
right.
And one of them was a minister, and he said, you know, the doctor at the hospital, he was so nice. Let's not cause any problems. So the two girls, happened to be girls, they sort of knew each other. They were a couple towns apart and they ran into each other. And then eventually, when they became adults, they did DNA tests because one of them got sick, I think with cancer. And then it was realized that, you know, that the kids were switched at birth.
Yeah, yeah. Well, anyway, that's a good one.
Yeah, anyway, what a story, what a story, what a sad story for the guy who, you know, was trying to put his life together and it's thought he's crazy. But, you know, I guess situation it makes sense, right? The way
Yeah,
it was presented.
yeah, yeah.
But how somebody got DNA and actually believe the guy and listen to it is kind of the interesting part.
Yeah, DNA is leads you to the truth eventually, usually.
Yeah, yeah. All right. What's your story? What's your
I got
first
a
story
similar
for
one
us?
actually. Wired has a story about a vigilante hacker who is he was targeted by North Korea. Um,
Okay.
and so then he decided to just take matters into his own hands and hack North Korea. And he took the entire country of North Korea off the internet for weeks with his attacks.
He
And then
did?
he did this under a fake name P4X for PAX. And then he decided to get more. He's a 38-year-old Colombian American, and he's just kind of a hardcore hacker. And he then came out of the closet, admitted who he was, and the government of the U.S. didn't prosecute him. They interviewed him and they said, well, let's find out how you did this. And he thinks the U.S. government should be much more aggressive in taking down our enemies. And when he presented this stuff to like the NSA, they said, well, you skipped the step where you have to give a 100-page PowerPoint presentation to some general who has no idea what you're talking about, who then stops it. And they say that his argument is we should just be out there hacking everybody right and left. I know how to do it. We can just take everybody down. We should punish these guys. And the U.S. government is all shy and timid about cybersecurity operations. It reminds me a lot of the Anonymous crew or
Yeah.
in 2012 where they got arrested. And then he said, hey, the government was going to like hire us to hack other countries. And I said, that sounds pretty bogus. And I think there are a few people in the government that do think we should be hacking everybody more, and these guys are right. And a bunch of other people said, wait a minute, you don't even know you're not getting innocent people in the crossfire here. You this is not a very wise policy. And, anyway, it's a very long, in-depth article, interesting to people who are sort of on the vigilante hacker side. Um, I tend, I guess, like most things, to sort of be sympathetic to the government that says, just letting a bunch of madmen hack everybody right and left is not really improving the world. What you really need is like organized military operations. And I imagine there's a whole lot of dysfunction in our military. But but anyway, it's an interesting story. This guy developed his various attacks, and it reminds me of the Jester. There's various characters out here hacking things, claiming to be patriotic. And this is what I hear frequently about foreign nations that hack us. Like Chinese hackers attack us, but it's not necessarily really the Chinese government. It might just be random patriotic, angry Chinese people that are pro their government hacking us like this guy.
Yeah.
And then what we do is we yell at them and say, you people need to keep your criminals under control. You're responsible for what your citizens do. And so we kind of need to take the same attitude about our citizens. Anyway,
Yeah. You know, I was always taught that we can be defensive. In other words, when we're attacked, but we can't go on the offensive.
Oh, I think we're
That,
definitely on the offensive now.
yeah,
And a few years ago, under the previous Cyber Command administration, they tried to be as very offensive and have quite a few um, offensive attacks against our enemies. But um, now I think we move back towards a defensive policy. I think they're not really clear. And I think
yeah,
that's the
yeah.
fundamental thing. I mean, now everybody in the world is freaking out about AI and saying AI is going to destroy the world. They may have forgotten that about 10 or 15 years ago, they all said cybersecurity is going to destroy the world and it's going to be the ultimate military weapon. It's going to kill us all. Nicole Pearl Rothright wrote a book, This is How the World Ends. And I think it turned out, well, cyber attacks don't actually do all that much damage, make all that much difference. Mostly you take something down for a week, they turn it back on again. Um, I think, this has been sort of overhyped to a large extent.
Well, yeah, yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Um, like I said, I was taught kind of like in law that if somebody's being aggressive to you, you can defend yourself, but as soon as the act is kind of over, the threat is gone. If you continue to be aggressive, then you become the attacker. So
But, but
but
our
laws
espionage
have,
teams and our black ops
yeah,
teams are totally breaking these rules right and left.
yeah.
So,
Yeah,
and to some extent, our cyber teams are part of that. But I think, as you would expect, occasionally do something. Frequently, it doesn't have good results. Then the people come in and say, "All right, knock it off," and then they want to do something and they get told no by higher authority. I think this is probably appropriate. The various levels of authority are skeptical about this
yeah,
and holding it
yeah,
back. So,
yeah. I agree. I
yeah.
agree.
So I don't have
You
any
know,
like good story with a firm conclusion. And I think that gets to yours where we have the uh the simplicity of a good story up against the difficulty of finding good evidence.
yeah. So this is kind of interesting. This is a review of a book in Nature, and Nature has been around, very well respected, I
Yeah,
would argue. I think Nature has been around for scientific journal 150 years,
yeah, yeah.
give or take, somewhere around there.
And this is Jonathan Haidt, who I've heard everywhere telling the
Oh,
same.
you have?
Oh yeah, I've heard at least 8 podcasts about Jonathan Haidt. This has been his big thing.
So he's saying that this is the great rewiring of
Right.
our kids.
Yeah.
And boy, are a lot of claims being made here. And it's all about screen time, mental health. And this is being targeted towards parents and teachers that that screen time is causing all this mental illness for kids. And he claims that it's the great rewiring of children's brains. And it's,
Its fundamental evidence is
yeah,
that the mental health of kids went way down starting in 2012, at the same time as like social networks came up and phones.
yeah. So he's blaming, sorry, I guess I didn't make that clear. It's based
Yeah,
on social networks.
yeah.
And then isn't it exacerbated by COVID as well?
Not the ones I've heard, but anyway, could
No, okay. Okay. So it's a direct attack against social networks.
well, he
Eh,
claims that that's the thing that changed, and he has really strong evidence that the teenagers, especially teen girls, really are
Yeah.
going through some kind of crisis. Many more of them are suicidal, self-cutting, self-harm, depressed than used to be the case. So something is wrong with the kids, apparently.
That's what he claims, but he claims that our brains or the kids' brains have been rewired.
Well, well,
So,
that seems
yeah,
like prophecy.
that's the claim.
Yeah.
The question is, where's the evidence? And as Carl Sagan once said, extraordinary claims need extraordinary evidence,
Yeah.
but there's no evidence here.
Well, there kind of never is in social psychology, though. I mean, it's been kind of a fake science all my life.
Uh, yeah. But it's a case of making the evidence, right?
Yep. Well,
Fit fit the
well,
claim.
well, yeah. Now, the first claim is that there's a crisis among the kids, and his evidence for that seems pretty strong. Not that I have any direct knowledge about it, but
Yeah.
apparently the self-reporting of mental health of kids has gone greatly down, and so And maybe this is because they're all on their phones, you're not going outside and playing normally. That seems like a plausible explanation. It's just really hard to prove.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
like the review where the guy says, I have a statistics course, and on the first day I come in and I show the students two graphs of unrelated things and let them make up stories. Look, the phase of the moon predicts the price of meat or something, because his whole correlation doesn't equal causation.
Yeah. Yeah. So the thing is, though, there have been other analyses that have been done. One was in 72 countries that show there's no consistent or measurable association between well-being and the rollout of social media globally. Then there's another adolescent brain cognitive study. It's the largest long-term study of adolescent brain development in the US, found no evidence to support it. So, yeah, we have to see. I would argue that there are probably other factors here that we need to look at, such as diet, plastics in our environment, drugs that have seeped into drinking water, sugar that's been added to our food. A lot of that has been claimed. But again, there's no hard evidence that we can link the two together.
Yeah, I would blame giant economic factors because it
Yeah.
seems to me that America peaked in the 50s and now um, every generation expects to have a harder time than their parents. Like my students have a hard time getting jobs. People are pretty much given up being able to afford a house. They're frequently not getting married and having kids. I think it's true that our kids have a relatively bleak future compared to previous generations. They're probably right to be depressed about it.
Yeah. I've had this discussion with others. I think due to World War II, our country artificially prospered and it's prospered very well.
Yeah,
And our generation kind of benefited from that. The prosperity of the 50s,
yeah,
60s, the housing boom, people had jobs. We were rebuilding Europe, we were rebuilding Japan. The Vietnam War came along. That was part of the military industrial complex.
yeah.
In the space race, all of that, we were spending a lot of money. We had the Cold War, we were spending on rockets and missiles and defense, and we always had to one up everybody else, which, I guess I understand, but we benefited from that. We
Yeah,
benefited greatly.
yeah. And I think a
Um,
similar thing is like I've heard a study where they said all science fiction about the future is now all negative. Like they can't hardly find any examples of like a positive future, like the early Star Trek. It's all sort
uh,
of dystopian stuff. People just don't foresee a good future. That's not our current belief. I remember my
yeah,
generation in the 80s when Reagan in, most of us they interviewed, like more than half the kids did not expect to live to see 30 because we really thought there was going to be nuclear war.
yeah,
And before that, the Vietnam War was extremely demoralizing. And, I think the rah rah, we're the greatest country in the world, patriotic stuff that Trump is pushing, this is why people wish we could get back to that, right? There was a time in the 50s when everybody said, this is great. We're on top of the world. Every generation is going to do better. And we just haven't felt that way in a long time. Our whole nation is kind of depressed.
yeah. Well, it's kind of interesting. That's true in the 50s, and what a lot of people don't realize is the event that kind of shocked everybody was Sputnik. Do
Yeah.
you right? And that was kind of loosely, I'll call it the 9/11. There was no damage at the time, but it was something that shocked the nation that all of a sudden Russia, that we thought, or the Soviet Union, that we thought was a backwards country, had a missile program, and they were able to put the first artificial satellite in orbit,
Yeah.
which also meant that they could launch nuclear weapons, which they stole from us, I would say. The technology from the Manhattan
Well,
Project
yeah, yeah,
and
really.
going forward. Yeah, yeah.
Well,
So, that shocked the heck out of everybody.
yeah.
And they had the first animal in space, first man in space, first woman in space. And we were kind of like those early German rocket programs where ours were exploding on the launch pad.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I
And
guess we're going
yeah,
to live through an experiment. I guess
yep,
we're going to ban TikTok, and probably some states or something are going to ban social media for kids. And then we'll see if those kids suddenly get a lot healthier.
yeah. What do you think banning TikTok is going to do?
Absolutely nothing.
Yeah, I would agree. And, for the people that claim that the Chinese government and companies are collecting data from TikTok users,
Everybody
with
has the data.
well, the simple answer is if they want that data, they could easily buy it from Facebook
Yeah, the data is
and
nice.
other companies. Yeah, it's not
The
the
idea
data.
that they could be subtly influencing our kids through propaganda makes a little more sense, but there's no evidence it's happened. So it's like
Yeah,
preemptive prior restraint, right? When you punish someone in case they do something bad tomorrow. That's kind
yeah,
of nuts. I think this whole hostility towards China is really bad and counterproductive. I really don't want to see America go to war with China. I I I think just like a lot of Americans are criticizing Israel, saying you're destroying Gaza in this crazy war, going way too far, making things worse. I think all our hostility towards China is just the same. Go way overreacting to things, way making a bigger problem worse that's going to hurt us.
yeah,
But we seem
yeah.
to be on a inevitable collision course with China right now.
Yeah, no, I'm in agreement with you. It's an interesting situation, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. I think this is what historians do. You look at something like World War One and you see the gigantic forces that caused it, even though a lot of people could say, wait, this is no good. We shouldn't be going this way. There's some
Yeah,
giant force you can't stop making it happen.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Well, it goes back to the story. We greatly benefited World War One. We participated in it,
yeah,
but we weren't directly affected like countries in Europe were.
yeah.
World War Two, again, nothing happened on our soil, so to speak, and it was
Pearl
Europe
Harbor.
and well, yeah,
But I mean,
yeah,
compared to what happened in
yeah.
Europe, it was very small.
Yeah, yeah. There weren't entire cities wiped out in
Yeah,
multiple countries.
yeah, yeah. No, absolutely.
Yeah.
We're sort of a bystander in these giant events.
And, we greatly benefited. The Germans at the time had some of the best schools, university physicists, going, and we benefited by taking that technology and profiting off of it.
Yeah, yeah,
And, there was a lot of technology and sound and in video, things like that were brought back to the U.S. I know that Germany was far ahead of us, about 10 years in sound recording, and that became Ampex, if you know that company.
yeah, yeah. I've heard of them.
Yeah, yeah. So,
Well,
and yeah, yeah. So we could talk about that. I,
yeah.
I would argue that we were artificially, you know, propped up, and now we're falling back to like we're the rest of the world.
Well, maybe. Actually, in many ways, we're still doing better than the rest of the world,
Yeah,
but there appears to be something wrong with our teenagers.
yeah, yeah, yeah. All right, what else do you have for us?
There's a new DOS attack, which is kind of I did a lot of these DOS attacks years ago, and
Yeah,
this one is kind of amazing how we keep making the same mistake over and over. The one I did was the IPv6 router advertisement flood because the specification of IP version 6 said every time you get a router advertisement, you have to add a new address, and there was nothing to stop you from having to add thousands of new addresses. They just didn't think of that. And apparently they did the same thing with HTTP2. HTTP2 is now a large portion of web traffic, and HTTP2 has something called a continuation header. So you can send a header, and then you can not put the end mark in it. So that means there's more header coming. So now more header comes in a neck packet, but it also doesn't have the end mark. And you can just keep this up forever until you've got vast amounts of packets that are all supposed to be strung together. So it uses up all the RAM on the server and makes it crash. This is just yet another specification that said you can make it longer, but didn't set any upper limit, which in
so
retrospect they should have.
yeah, so what kind of so this is a client to the server.
Yeah,
These
yes,
are requests.
it's an HTTP request, but this
Yeah.
is like many others. You make an HTTP request that is so big it has to come in a second frame and a third frame. until you send many, many packets that are all being added together at the other end. This is almost the same thing as the ping of death from 30 years ago.
Yeah. And
It's just
so
amazing how we keep making the same mistake. Yeah,
so you can have one client that
right.
could overwhelm a server
That's right.
by you start with if we go with the train analogy, you
Yeah,
keep adding cars to the train
until the engine is
until
overloaded.
yeah, until the engine is overloaded. So
Yep,
all you need is a handful of computers,
yep,
not even, and you can overwhelm the memory.
yep. And there have been so many of these um, where, and so apparently this one was secretly announced in January to the right people, and apparently has already been patched. So that's good.
I see. I
But
see.
um, but it
So
is
this was HTTP 2.
HTTP 2. Now there is HTTP 3 too, and I really haven't looked into it much, but I wonder if they haven't made again similar mistakes in HTTP 3. I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, so HTTP 3 is quick protocol, is it
Yeah,
not?
yeah.
Yeah,
But this is the thing, people plan for future expansion, so they say, well, you should have an option to make this field bigger, but they don't think about there better be a limit to how big you can make it.
yeah,
Because I think
yeah,
they keep thinking, well, if we made a limit, then our protocol would become obsolete and they'd have to replace it with another. But if we make it expansible, then it'll live forever.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Anyway, it's hard to write these
Interesting.
protocols. A lot of people work hard on those RFCs. They try to think of everything, but they never do.
Right, right, exactly. Yeah, yeah. If they did, it would be perfect.
Yeah.
And
And you know what's amazing to me is how much the internet is just exploded out of nowhere. Like I remember I was reading about a cryptographic mistake and they said, we didn't even have public key encryption until 79. All this stuff is just throwing brand new technology. It's only sort of halfway working out there.
yeah,
It's all
yeah,
Moore's law. Everything is growing so fast, we don't really have time to finish and polish anything.
yeah, yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah. Yeah.
I kind of look at the computer industry like the car industry, but 1 year in the computer industry is 10 years in the car industry.
Cars really stay stable for longer, so you can actually, standardize on the dashboard layout and stuff like that.
Yeah, but there was the argument against seat belts and the argument against turn signals, and eventually we get all this, all
There
these
was an argument.
features.
There was an argument against turn signals.
Well, they weren't in the original cars. I think you had one brake light,
Hmm.
but you didn't have turn signals. Didn't you have to take driver training
I
where you had
did.
to stick your arm out the window?
Well, yeah, and as a driver in San Francisco, anyway, I've noticed that about half the people don't use turn signals.
Yeah,
And I remember when I was taught, you're not required to. It's just a courtesy.
yeah, yeah. But
And yeah, so maybe it would be better to not rely on them.
I will tell you, I've seen bicyclists that use the hand signal.
Oh yeah, I used to. I remember when I was a kid, my mom was driving and there was a road that was kind of confusing, and she slowed down and the guy turned in front of her. We said, "How did you know?" And she said, "He just looked like the kind of guy that would make a turn." That's what you had to do. Anyway, uh,
All right, here's one from Amazon. You ever go shopping at Amazon? This is their stores.
this is a great one.
Yeah, so Amazon had they just walked out on their self-checkout technology.
Yeah.
So this is kind of funny. So the stores, and I think this is going on in Japan, but it's a different technology. It seems to be working in Japan from what I understand. But Amazon in the US, and it's not Amazon in Japan. I should be very clear on that. This is Amazon stores, and they set up self checkout. So you,
Self checkout. You just grab stuff and walk right out the door.
yeah, and you get billed, right? Now, how do they do the technology? You would think they have sensors and maybe they have cameras. Well,
I
they
thought
do
I
have
even read
cameras.
articles saying it was like AI and cameras or something.
Yeah, but really, it's reported they had 1,000 people in India who are scanning the camera feeds to ensure an accurate checkout.
It's just a guy watching which one you grabbed off the shelf.
Yeah, exactly.
What a terrible way to do it. No wonder they gave up. Like, if they proposed that to me, I'd say, no, that will never work. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, but apparently it was a combination of technology and people. because it's also reported in New York, and there's a class action lawsuit going on there because they were doing facial or biometric recognition so they could track the people in the stores. And now Amazon, it's claimed, has all this biometric data on you.
Yeah.
And there was no consent or information that was passed along to customers
Well, I
about it.
remember Amazon had the palm readers at one for a while where you could pay with your palm.
Oh, yeah.
And that
Whatever
also
happened to
seems to have
that?
come and gone. Well, Amazon seems to be testing a lot of stupid ideas and abandoning them.
Well, Disney had that too with the theme parks, right?
Oh, I didn't know
They
that.
had, I think, palm recognition for maybe a year to get on rides or something to for their fast pass. I've kind of forgot about that, and that kind of there was some outrage over that, but Disney fanatics didn't seem to mind.
And supposedly some airlines just use face recognition instead of a ticket, but I haven't seen that anywhere. And I think that also hasn't turned out to be the wonderful thing they thought it was going to be.
Yeah, yeah. All right, what do you have for us next, Sam? Here.
Well, I just got two little ones. Apparently, people are saying they're so fed up with Google, they are paying for Kagi. Kagi costs $10 a month and is a search engine. Therefore, I haven't tried it, but the people that try it say, this is wonderful. I'm glad to pay $10 a month. This is what Google used to be when you'd actually just find the good stuff instead of having a bunch of ads in the way, which
Yeah,
might be true. I certainly have noticed Google is a lot less useful than it used to be. So
yeah.
that's possible. And the last one I thought the so now we're going to have a permanent moon base soon. We're going to have people on the moon. So the White House has ordered NASA to create a time zone for the moon. They don't have a current standard for lunar time. And
That's an interesting one.
I know, I mean, it's actually, I understand why they have to ask. It's not
Yeah.
simple. How many time zones does he have one day, or do you have a 30-day day? Is it all just the same time zone? There's actually no immediate logical way to do it. I mean, I would just say, to hell with it. It's the same time it is in Washington, D.C. There. That solves the problem. But I suppose they'd say, oh, no, no, you should make it Greenwich Mean Time or something, or you should split the moon into time zones. Actually, there's no obvious way to do it at all. Good luck.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's I kind of joke here, but I've forgotten my years for each of the planets. But sometimes people ask how old you are, and you can say, "Oh, I'm 22 in Saturn years,"
Oh, yeah, that's right. Same
or
kind of
I'm,
thing. Yeah.
yeah, same idea.
And a thing like the moon, you could, I don't know, you could make arguments for all different ways to lay out the time zones.
Yeah, well, it's odd because it's a natural satellite of Earth,
Yeah.
and so there's a rotation that matches Earth. It's synced in,
Yeah.
right?
It only turns around once every 30 days or 28 days, so you could claim that that should be the day. That's really going to confuse everybody.
Yeah, yeah,
Remember in Star
yeah.
Trek, they have this thing called Star Date 4192.7, and you kind of need to invent that. What is that star date going to be? Maybe
And
it should just be the time in New York City, but maybe you'd like to pretend you have some more universal way to define it.
well, when you're a big imperialist country, you just said it's Greenwich Mean Time, England.
I know, well, and really, can you actually do anything better than that? Are you going to
Uh,
take like the
yeah.
center of the galaxy and draw a line through the sun and convert it? What are you going to do?
Well, in the Linux world, we did it right with
Well,
Epic
yeah,
Time.
count the number of seconds since 1970, and that turned into kind of a disaster. It's a hard problem, you know?
It is right. You're right. You're right. I think the reason I don't know if this is true or not, but I think um, England became the center of time because of shipping or because they needed a time standard
Yeah,
for the when you did navigation. And if I remember correctly, England lost a large armada that was coming back into port because they didn't know where to turn. They didn't have the timing right in a lot of fog, and they lost, I don't know, 50, 100 ships. And so the race was on to come up with a clock.
Yeah, I
It-
remember it's a
yeah,
big deal. A clock that would actually run accurately on a ship was absolutely a military and shipping necessity. So you could
yeah.
navigate through fog and stuff. Yeah. So I mean,
And
yeah,
yeah, and there was a extremely large prize that was given for that.
yeah. And
Yeah,
if we're going to have a physical presence on the moon, it's going to be a problem
yeah.
synchronizing time. So it's an issue.
The
Yeah, we'll
the
see.
other question, the other question I got for you, Sam, is there going to be time drift because of
Well,
the twin
everything.
paradox?
Well, I don't know about the time paradox. I know the Earth calendar is constantly being adjusted for the rotation of the
Yeah,
Earth. So that's one issue. But the other one, of course, is the gravitational slowdown and
that's what I'm getting at.
the
Yeah,
speed of light. I know I already saw it. Well, the gravitational slowdown is so small, I think it doesn't really matter. But the speed of light delay is a real problem.
yeah,
So
yeah,
it gets
yeah.
really complicated. Time gets really complicated when you start having big distances like that.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So we'll see.
Yeah.
So we still have a space force, don't we?
I think we do. I'm not sure what they're doing now, but they do pop up every few months in the news doing something
Yeah,
or talking
yeah,
about something.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right. Well, I think
All
that's
right,
it for
Sam.
me.
Yep. So we're meeting again, let's see, on Tuesday the 9th.
Yep.
And when's the eclipse?
I don't know. I didn't pay attention after I found out you couldn't see it in California.
Now, I think, is it the 8th?
Something like that. Big deal about the eclipse this week. Everyone is getting excited, but you can't see it from here, so I paid no more attention.
Oh. So let me just do a quick check here
Yeah.
because let's see. I'm trying to find a date here, of course. It'll
Okay.
be April 8th.
Yeah.
The reason
115.
I'm bringing this up is
Yeah.
because there are a lot of rapture parties that are being held.
Yeah, they got a nice map showing it. It's going to cut through like Maine and then go down through Texas. So a lot of America is going to be able to see totality, but not California.
Yeah, yeah. But I think there's a little bit in Southern California.
Not according
I'm
to this
not
one.
sure.
Well, probably
So
you probably see a partial eclipse in Southern
yeah,
California,
partial
but
eclipse. That's what I'm
totality is
getting.
going to miss us
No,
thousands of
I
miles.
think, yeah, I think it's Texas comes
Right.
down through there.
Yeah.
So interestingly, there's some prisoners who have requested. Have you heard this story? For religious beliefs, they want to be able to see the eclipse. The problem is they're atheists.
Yeah. Yeah.
So figure that one out.
It's a scam.
Of course.
Yeah. All right. Reminds me of
All
the
right.
people that turn to religion as Jedi. It was a big thing for a while back.
Yeah. So I guess, you can join me for the day after the rapture party and we'll have another podcast.
Unless we've all
And
ascended to heaven.
unless, right, right.
I think for me, I think the odds of that are not high.
I don't think so either. But I have heard of people getting tips of like $500, and they're saying, I don't need the money.
Mike
It's
Lindell, the guy with My Pillow guy, has refused to pay the rent for his warehouses because he is going to be the rapture and he's not going to have to.
well, what does he need the money for? Why doesn't he pay?
Well, he's out of money. He's broke because
Oh, he is.
he used to have he used to be like really rich from his pillows, but he's ruined it all with this incessant election denialism and trying to become like a Republican head of he's failed. His politics have ruined his business. Sort of like Elon Musk is in the process of letting his politics destroy his business.
Wow. Well, it's a little different between pillows and Starlink and rockets and
Elon Musk has
cars.
ruined the business in the first place, but
Yeah,
he is harming it with his incessant politics.
yeah,
Both of
yeah.
them need like a friendly character to say, "Why don't you just shut up for a while?"
Well, politics has ruined many a Hollywood stars too.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You can
Especially these
be,
days
yeah,
when
yeah.
you can easily
All
get
right.
canceled. Anyway, that's it for this one. We'll be back on Tuesday.
Yeah. So we'll see on the 9th
Yeah,
if we're here.
yeah.
Take care.